Thanks. So you're seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So yeah, thanks. So this is my presentation, and I will actually, it's an advertising actually for students, because I got this year NSERC discovery grant focusing on introgression, phylogeography, and ecological niche of Nearctic Woodpecker clade. And so yeah, I'm looking to find students to work on this very interesting topic, on which I'm working with Jeremy Kirchman from the New York State Museum, and also Ben Winger at the University of Michigan. So the boreal, as you're all aware, the boreal biome is a wide one, one of the most important worldwide, that is mostly driven by natural disturbances such as fires, insect outbreaks, and also windthrow. But there is also more and more anthropogenic drivers. And for instance, in the Canadian boreal forest, studies that date from 2013 showed interesting national-wide information about anthropogenic drivers in the boreal forest of Canada. And what we can see is that there is some differences at large scales, where there is more cut blocks and roads in the eastern part of the Canadian forest, where the western part of the boreal is more disturbed by seismic and also linear feature due to mostly gas and oil development. These both natural disturbances and anthropogenic disturbances has effect on biodiversity. And here there is an Eve actually thought about it, and it was quite interesting to have a more detailed information from Eve about it. And it's just a matter of a bit of difference between the cut blocks and the fire patterns at the landscape scale. So Yann Boucher presented a nice graph about, the steady and systematic northward progression of cut blocks in Quebec through the times, where in comparison with the fire, where it's a more stochastic vulnerability-based patterns, where it's not necessarily a systematic one like cut blocks. So these impacts biodiversity, and biodiversity that are less known in the boreal are the woodpeckers. So you have the American three-toed woodpecker at your left, and the black-back woodpecker at the right. And they are species that are often considered quite close, and we don't know much about the difference in their ecological niche. And the American three-toed woodpecker is a species that is more abundant in the western part of the country, so British Columbia, Yukon, Alaska, and it's a species that is showing various trends among its range. And we can see that in eastern part of Canada, for instance, in Quebec, the species is showing a strong decline, so a decline of 4.5% per year, which can be huge, considered as a huge decline. And after that, you have through the range of the three-toed woodpeckers, there is subspecies that have been identified based on morphological difference, so plumage and body mass. So you have dorsalis in the southwestern range. You have facetius, which is the more northwestern central. And after that, you have bacatus, which is found from Ontario to the Maritimes. And there is a size gradient where the subspecies dorsalis is bigger and more, and you see that at the back the stripes are more clear and even white, almost white. When you are going to the bacatus one, it's a smaller woodpecker, and also the stripes are more less clear and maybe going a bit more to the black. And after that, you have the black-back woodpecker, the Picoides arcticus. You can see that the black-back is mostly abundant in the eastern part of the country, so Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes. And the species also is showing a decline in the eastern part of its range, with a decline of about minus 2.6% per year. which can be associated in part to change in habitats, as we saw with my previous slides, but also information that Eve provided about changes in old growth forests at the landscape, but also in the local scales due to forest management. There is no clear subspecies that have been found in a previous study on black-backed woodpeckers, but there is an isolated population that have been identified, and all the population found in the boreal coniferous forest has been found with no differences. So currently, we can see that the boreal forest has a northern range. But it's not been always that case. And actually, for now, there is 3 species of the gender Picoides. So the Picoides dorsalis, the American three-toed woodpecker. There's the black-backed woodpecker, also in North America. But there is also in Palearctic the Picoides tridactylus, so the Eurasian three-toed woodpeckers, which is quite close of the American three-toed. And actually, if we are going back a bit, we can see in the Middle Miocene, actually, there were only one Picoides representative, which I call the Picoides ancestor, that was found at lower elevation. And with the progression of the coniferous and evergreen forest through the north, the Picoides ancestors going also north. And after that, there is the coniferous forest bridge that have been made through the late Miocene, and actually a part of some individuals from the Picoides ancestors colonized actually the Eurasian boreal forest and evolved there. So after that, we going back to it's not late Pliocene here in Miocene, but it's rather the Pliocene, and we had actually maybe 1 million years ago some individuals that came back to the North America, that of the individuals that was to in Eurasian boreal forest. So those that remain evolved in Picoides tridactylus, and those that came back evolved under the Picoides dorsalis, while the ancestors that remain in North America evolved in Picoides arcticus. So we are in front of a secondary contact of species that live in sympatry, and it may have also a potential of introgressions of gene of each of both species into the others. So the question is, knowing that there is a high pressure on habitat for both species, and we are seeing a lot of decline of these populations, maybe there is another threat to the species where it may have a loss of genetic diversity in these species, and with a focus, particularly with the, if you remember, the Bagatus subspecies of Picoides dorsalis that is showing a really strong decline. So the idea is to having different projects working on that topic. The first one would be to determine the genetic structure of the Picoides dorsalis. So if the subspecies that are only based for now on body mass and plumage is supported by genetic variations. And after that, another project to see more in details about the genetic structure of the black-backed woodpecker Picoides arcticus. Because we are looking to work not necessarily on specific gene, but we are looking to use a really recent methodology using the whole genome analysis to go more deeper into these genetic variances. And after that, so these two projects are master students project, and the third one is a PhD student project looking for the relationship between the ecological niche of both species and the possibility to have a gene flow and introgressions of genes between both species, with a focus on, again, the eastern part of their range, so Picoides dorsalis, Bagatus, and the Picoides arcticus. So that is the main idea of the project. And actually, the potential outcomes is that the COSEWIC, the Committee of Status of Endangered Wildlife Species in Canada, they can use subspecies as designable units, but it needs to be supported by strong support for subspecies designations, and body mass and plumage is not enough support for that. So what we are looking for is to see if the Picoides dorsalis baccatus, the American three-toed that we are finding in eastern Canada, that is showing a strong decline, is a real subspecies and can be considered as a designable unit for the COSEWIC. So that's it. If you are interested, please just be in contact with me. Here's my email. You can reach me via Twitter, and I will be happy to take questions.